I stopped asking which AI coding model is the smartest, because after using GPT, Claude, Gemini, and GLM on my real startup codebase, I realized the better question is, which one do I actually trust not to break my code? I'm not ranking these based on benchmarks, I'm ranking them based on what happens when I actually use them to build real features, fix bugs, and work inside a messy codebase. Hey, I'm Term. I've been coding for almost 10 years and I'm currently working on my startup called PickMim. So yeah, I do a lot of coding. But what is the best coding model? So a while back I did a video where I showed you what tools I use for building my startup. And I think it was interesting. Many people use one specific model, but that's not really the best. I found myself working with multiple models is actually far better than just sticking to one. So what is the best coding model? Is it ChatGPT 5.5? Well, ChatGPT 5.5 is my daily driver and the one I use the most. But then we also have Claude models, so that'd be Claude Sonnet, Opus, and Haiku. But I also use ZAI's GLM model, and I tried once but really haven't given it another shot to Gemini models. So I'll go through all these models because I have experience with them. I know there's Kimi K2 2.5, something like that, but I haven't really used it, so I can't really speak of the efficiency of those models, but I'll stick with mine. So let's start with GPT 5.5. I will do another set here. GPT 5.5. For GPT 5.5, this is my daily driver. So every time I have to do something, I use GPT 5.5, especially for the backend. We use PHP and Laravel. There's a lot of backend stuff, and with that, it's really good. It's really methodical and precise, which I find Claude models to actually be a lot more eager to actually code, and they're a lot more token hungry. So let me actually start the comparison here. So Claude models, they're actually very token hungry and very eager to output something. So for example, I would say Claude, there's this bug, or I don't like this specific part of UI, because I would use Claude mostly on the front end these days, not so much on the back end. And this is precisely why, because I found out that on the back end, the Claude models, you would give them a task and they would just go at it, not even, well, they do read the files, but maybe don't read all of them to get enough context, while GPT 5.5 takes a bit more time to get enough context. So Claude code would finish faster usually, but the newer models are actually slower than GPT 5.5. So what's the point? Usually the GPT line was slower, but now, because it's more precise, it actually finishes the task faster. And just in general, the model is now faster than, for example, Opus 4.8 that just dropped. So yeah, like I said, GPT models very good at backend, and Claude models are very good at the front end. Like I said, GPT 5.5, my daily driver for the backend, and you can do some front-end stuff with it, but I would not, rely on it. I usually do maybe a first pass with GPT 5.5, but then I basically throw it all away for a Claude version. Claude is still king for front-end, I think. I will come to GLM a bit later, but so far Claude still the best at front end as far as I know, from my experience at least. I know a lot of people also tinker with the reasoning effort of the model. I like to keep this at medium, which I think is actually the default for GPT models, and I find it works really well. I actually find that high or X high is sometimes worse because the model is extremely context aware. So if there's something in its context, like you said something 4 or 5 prompts ago, it really likes to stick to it, and that's a problem when you want to do something else now, and especially if you put it on high or X high, because there's a lot of more reasoning tokens in its context, and it might get lost in whatever it was thinking. But I would rather keep it grounded to the actual code base and let it ask questions which I can provide better answers to whatever it's thinking about. So I like to keep it at medium. Now for Claude, I also don't really change settings that much. So default reasoning, which I think was high or X high for the Opus models. I think 4.7 was X high, and now Opus 4.8 is high. I just like to keep those as the default, and usually it gets the job done. Haven't experimented as much with Claude changing the effort, but that's usually an indicator that the default is okay. Now for the GLM. So GLM is an interesting model from ZAI. It's definitely not my daily driver, or rather it was my daily driver for a while, because when I was still getting into this agentic stuff, I dabbled. I used GPT a bit. I used Claude. I actually really liked Claude before, and I thought GPT was not really that great. But after switching, I think when GPT 5.3 dropped, that's when I actually switched, and I haven't really gone back to Claude. But before that, Claude was really nice to use, but it was too expensive. So GLM was like a cheap version of Claude. That's what it felt like. It's basically the same, but it feels a bit more stupider. That's how it looked to me. And this is specific. I think I was using GLM 5, GLM 5.1, something like that. And the reason is I got in when it was still cheap. I know they increased the prices now, but I got in at a $100 per year price for the Pro subscription, which is a lot cheaper than whatever you get with Claude or GPT, because for GPT now I pay like 100 euros a month, and yeah, that's basically 2 months worth, and I get a GLM 5.1 for a whole year. So that was definitely a deal of that time, and I took it. It was okay. I coded with it for a while, but I just found using GPT 5.5 or the GPT line much better for me. I didn't have to refactor as much. I didn't have to go back and look at the code that much. I trust it a lot more after a couple of code reviews I do. So yeah, definitely, if you don't have the money, GLM I think is a great model still. Even though they increased prices, I think it's still one of the better coding models out there, like open source coding models that we have. Of course, I haven't tried Kimi. They also say it's really good, and I think the composer models are also based on Kimi, so that seems pretty good as well. And interestingly enough, I also went for the high and X high reasoning for this model, same as Claude, which gives you another comparison to how close these two models feel. And the Gemini. Now, Gemini is the one I have the least experience with. I did try some front-end stuff, and it was okay. I still like Claude better for it. I know some people really like the Gemini front-ends, and I'm not so sure. I wasn't really sold. I even tried their special front-end studio, the similar to what Claude Design is, but it was like before that, and it was, I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't really that good. For the backend, again, it's okay. It's not good, not bad. I do find that it does a lot of tool execution errors, so a lot of those, and I don't really, like that. It wastes a lot of tokens, and it just seems like stuff is not getting done. So I really haven't tried the models in like something like 2 months. Maybe they'll get better. I guess I have to give them a try at some point. But yeah, this is basically what I use. And if you remember from the previous video, in Conductor, you can do this really easily. You go down here and you choose Claude Code or Codex. Now for Claude Code, this is basically just a harness, right? So you can use different models, and specifically I use GLM for Claude Code, and Codex, of course, I use the GPT subscription. So yeah, this is the models I use. So I wouldn't say, there's like, this is the best model. I think each model has its own strength and weaknesses. But yeah, we can also take a look at the prices. I haven't looked at the prices in a while, but yeah, as you can see, the GPT models are actually the most expensive right now. This one, GPT 5.5, which is interesting because, like I said before, usually the Claude models were the pricier ones and the faster ones, but now it seems like it's flipped. So the GPT model is more expensive and faster, but it's less token hungry. So in the end, the GPT line is actually still cheaper than what you get if you would be using the Claude models. And you can probably feel this if you have both subscriptions, how fast your weekly and your 5-hour limit is actually reached. I feel like with Claude, I don't know, 5 prompts and I hit my 5-hour limit. Of course, that's on the $20 subscription. But still, I did have the $20 subscription for Codex, and that lasted me a lot longer than what I had with Claude. Now, of course, the next 3 models are over Claude, which is the historic norm. Usually it was like this. As you can see, I think... Yeah, okay, so the Opus 4.7 and 4.8 are priced the same, which is really nice. Although Opus 4.8 is less token hungry, which is good, because that means, you're gonna pay less, you're gonna use less tokens. And then GLM is all the way down here, a lot cheaper than the state-of-the-art models that are up front. Now, we also have Kimi K2.6 over here, Minstrel, Gwen. I've heard good stuff about Gwen as well. So yeah, if you're looking for a cheap one, I would recommend GLM. And the other ones, I don't know that much. I think lately DeepSeek V4 also is quite highly regarded and really cheap. Like, the GLM one is magnitudes cheaper than those, and it seems like DeepSeek is even magnitudes cheaper than GLM. So yeah, but it's been quite a while since GLM actually released a new model, so maybe we're gonna see a GLM 6 or something like that pretty soon, and that might be another jump as well in price and in performance, hopefully. We'll see how that goes, but I am hopeful because the prices keep getting higher and higher. We'll see hopefully soon as well the new Mythos line of models from Anthropic, and I'm expecting those to be a lot more expensive as well. We'll see how that goes with subscriptions. Maybe they won't even be in your subscription plan. You'll have to go specifically through tokens through the API. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, but that's for now. I would say GPT 5.5, my top pick, daily driver, Claude, anything UI related, front end stuff, and then GLM if you don't have the cash to spare. So yeah, thank you.